training 2017. Yeah, got off to a good start. The new face, center fielder Dexter Fowler, on base twice, driven in twice by Matt Carpenter in game one. The boys are back and so are we. It's game number 2 of spring training, and it comes your way next. This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball, and it's another beautiful afternoon. It's game number 2 of spring training 2017. And today the Cardinals are the home team at Roger Dean Stadium, and they'll play host to the Miami Marlins. And alongside Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Welcome to Cardinals baseball. We were treated to Dexter Fowler, Matt Carpenter yesterday, and today it's Randal Grichuk, who we highlight. He'll be in the lineup today.
Our first look at him, he's going to replace Matt Holliday as the Cardinals' everyday left fielder. He should bring a little bit more defense. 24 home runs a year ago, 68 RBIs. The key for Randal will be to cut down on his strikeouts.
Mike Myers gets the start today for the St. Louis Cardinals. It's game number 2 of 15 right here on Fox Sports Midwest. First pitch, starting lineups, comes your way next. Get ready for the spring training home to the St. Louis Cardinals and the Miami Marlins. The Cardinals will be the home team today after dropping yesterday's ball game by the final of 8-7. Well, today we will have 4 umpires on the scene, and it's led by C.B. Buckner. He'll be calling the balls and strikes. Larry Vanover, Lance Barksdale, and Nick Marley. Here's a look at the Miami Marlins lineup, presented by Chevrolet. Derek Dietrich, Martin Prado, then Yelich and Stanton in the middle of this lineup. Bohr, Ozuna, Real Muto, he batted leadoff yesterday. Rojas, terrific defender. He's your shortstop, and Ellis, the catcher. Cardinals have taken the field, and there's a look at Mike Myers, 6'3" tall, 215 pounds, and we saw him make one start last year, and it was an inauspicious beginning to his major league career.
Yeah, he'd like to forget about it. He gave up 9 runs in an inning plus. It was a rough start against the Dodgers, but he really had a good season in Double-A, where he was an all-star, went up to Triple-A, and maybe out of necessity he was rushed a bit to the big leagues a year ago and had that rough start. But the Cardinals still high on Myers, who went to Ole Miss.
Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, and there's a look at Aledmys Diaz. Our first look at the Cardinals' everyday shortstop. Grichuk in left. We talked about him during the open. Tommy Pham in center. Cunningham is in right. Johnny Peralta at third. Valera and Adams on the right side of the infield. Eric Fryer is behind the plate. So Randall Grichuk, Rick, the transition from center to left, some will tell you it's not as easy as you might think.
Well, he said early on that the ball has a couple of different angles and it slices differently towards left, and he's a little more uncomfortable there than he was in center and right. But he was a Gold Glover in the minor leagues, and he is talent enough to figure out how to play left field and would have a plus arm as far as a left fielder is concerned. And just a matter of him getting used to it and long spring training for that to happen. Good news from Mike Matheny today was that Major League Baseball is making sure that all teams have a lot of their regulars in the lineup this spring. It's a new initiative to make sure you see some of your favorite players when you tune in on Fox Sports Midwest.
There's a look at Eric Fryer. That'll be one of the storylines of this camp. Will he be the backup, or is it Carson Kelly? And we saw that Fryer did a very nice job with the Cardinals and then came back to haunt them while playing with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Had a big hit against the Cardinals after hitting .368 for the Cardinals, but then they ran out of roster room to keep him and had to let him go.
Derek Dietrich will lead it off. Second baseman for Miami. No D. Gordon again here this afternoon. He was a late scratch from the lineup in Game 1. Dietrich last year played all over the diamond, and he'll be a utility player again this season for Miami. First pitch by Myers is swung on and hit out to deep right center field. And the catch is made on the track by Tommy Pham. One pitch, one out.
We mentioned yesterday that normally early in spring training the pitchers are ahead of the hitters, but we certainly didn't see that in Game 1. A lot of hits here yesterday. 5 home runs, in fact, at a ballpark that normally is very difficult to hit home runs in. And both clubs really had a lot of good at-bats here yesterday.
Wind is swirling today. It wasn't the case yesterday, blowing out to right field and blowing in a little bit too. Martin Prado looks at a strike. Signed a 3-year extension in the offseason to remain with Miami.
Yep. I'll get him next time.
And the 0-1 pitch. Ground ball hit to third. Handled by Peralta. 2 down. This time last year, Johnny Peralta was the everyday shortstop, then was injured in spring. And the Cardinals then saw the emergence of Aledmys Diaz.
It's the best that Johnny has looked physically since he's been a Cardinal. Had a chance to chat with him at the cage during batting practice today, and he is in terrific shape. Looks younger, healthy, ready to go, always in a good mood, always happy. But I think he is on a mission to prove that he's an everyday player again.
And a strike to Christian Yelich. Yelich with one of those home runs that was hit yesterday, picked up 2 RBIs. And the 0-1. Peralta, by the way, a free agent to be, finishing up his contract with the Cardinals this season. When healthy, he can hit, and very sure-handed in the infield. Take it back to yesterday, and a no-doubter off the bat of Christian Yelich, who hit 21 of these a season ago. That was off of Suwano, who gave up 2 home runs.
Well, Yelich is a part of a very good and still young outfield for the Marlins. They may be as solid in the outfield. I mean, I can't think of a National League team that has a better young outfield than the Marlins.
And young, too.
Yeah.
And that's a trio that can stay together for quite some time. Yelich has a long-term deal. Marcell Ozuna was an all-star last year, and Giancarlo Stanton a 3-time all-star. And we know he's locked up. 13-year contract. There's a strikeout. The first of this ball game. Marlins go down in order. Good start for Mike Myers. Cardinals coming up in the home half of the first on Fox Sports Midwest.
You don't look like you're from
Score. Game 2 of 15 that we'll bring to you on Fox Sports Midwest. There's a look at the Cardinals lineup presented by Chevrolet. Valero will lead it off. And he is rated in the top 30 of Cardinals prospects by Baseball America. We know this man on the mound, that's Dan Straley, last year with the Reds. Had 31 starts and appeared in 34 games. He's bounced around a bit. He's been with the A's and the Cubs, Houston, and last season with Cincinnati. The 1-1 pitch. We saw in the first inning yesterday something that we rarely saw, if ever, last year, which was scoring a run without a hit.
Dexter Fowler leadoff walk, steals second, moved to third, then scores. We also had a very tight strike zone yesterday, but a difference I can already see with Bucknor here this afternoon.
Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Marlins defense, Ozuna nursing a sore leg. He's in left field. Yelich in center again. Stanton is in right. Prado, Rojas, Dietrich, and Boral on the infield. And A.J. Ellis is behind the plate. A bust-out season for Aledmys Diaz in 2016. And he provided us one of the great moments I felt that we had last year. His home run after attending the services and the funeral of Jose Fernandez. And he hits a grand slam in his first at-bat back. Diaz breaks his bat, slowly hit, and he'll beat it out. That's something he did a lot of last year. Infield hits. He had 24 infield hits for the Cardinals a year ago.
Well, pitchers try to get hitters out by throwing changeups. In this case, it's a hitter hitting a changeup that fools Straley. He has a quick reaction to it, but he overreacts, and he's not able to get a ball that wasn't hit very hard. But because it looked like it was going to be hit hard, again, breaking the bat of Diaz, Straley couldn't come up with it. I'm going to be anxious to look at Diaz in another full season to see if his development continues, because he really hit his stride last year. Made a lot of errors the first half of the season, but then became a much better defensive player. And I just hoping, and Cardinals are certainly hoping, that there's another level for Aledmys Diaz.
So runner at first, one out. Here's Yadier Molina. Molina turned 34 a year ago, started a career-high 142 games. That was 14 more than any other catcher in baseball. The 0-1. Breaking ball drops in, but a little bit high to Molina. 1 ball and 1 strike.
So how does that happen? How does a guy his age catch that many innings? He's smarter, wiser, picks his spots, doesn't take batting practice every day, rests when he needs to, takes care of his body, does all the things right.
It's off the mask of Ellis to the backstop. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Well, Yachty has seen this a time or two. Ouch. 1-2 the count. Runner at first is Aledmys Diaz. Outfield is shallow and straight away. Driven into center field and a base hit for Molina. A breaking ball went down to get it. And the Cardinals have 2 aboard for Matt Adams.
Let's go, Big City!
The sweet swing of Yadier Molina has become such a good hitter. 307 a year ago. Early in his career, Yachty was 220, 230. That was about where he was, but he has really learned to swing the bat. 7-time All-Star.
Many believe he's ticketed for the Hall of Fame if he keeps playing at this rate, stays healthy, as Diaz is back in safely. Really the magic number, I think you have to say, for a catcher is to get to 2,000 hits. You know, when you think about the Gold Gloves and, in Yachty's case, Platinum Gloves, and he's about 400 away from 2,000. Talked about the hands lower yesterday for Matt Adams. He was hitless in 3 plate appearances and pops that foul and out of play. If you're joining us for the first time this season, this is what we had. See on the left, hands much higher for Adams and now lower. Now he does get him back into a hitting position, but he does start them much lower.
He's also very fit. His stance is a little more open, meaning his chest is a little bit more facing the pitcher. Some guys believe that helps him with vision.
Remember Andres Galarraga? Don Baylor was the hitting coach of the Cardinals at the time and opened up his stance. He had never done that. And the second half with St. Louis, he was very, very good. 1 year with the Cardinals, and then he goes to Colorado, and obviously the thin air helped, but the stance. And he said he was able to, that hits Diaz, but he was able, because of what you're talking about, to move his head, both eyes facing the pitcher.
Yeah, and the stance, you mentioned it, when you get to the point of contact, most hitters are at the same place anyway. And the question is, how do you get there? But if you have an open stance, it may help you visually, which is a big part of hitting. If you're not seeing the spin out of the hand, you're not seeing you're not picking up the velocity, you're not picking up the arm angle, then hitting's tough. Tough enough anyway.
1 ball, 1 strike. Adams pulls it foul to the new first base coach of the St. Louis Cardinals, Ali Marmol. Former minor leaguer, was released at the age of 23, and the Cardinals then put him right back in the system as a coach. They knew that he could manage at some point. Now here he is in the big leagues.
Very, very gifted teacher. Talked to some folks about him today in the Cardinals development office, and they are so high on Ali Marmol as a long-term, big-time baseball guy. And, of course, he's going to have to pay his dues and start where he is, but he knows the game, understands the game, communicates the game well.
And at one point, he was the youngest manager in the minor leagues at the age of 25. He was at Johnson City and managing that club. 2-2. Just missed.
Best thing I can say about Ollie being around him, well, 2 things. Wonderful guy. I mean, that you really get a sense of a high character guy, but he has a presence. The good leaders always have that presence, and he certainly has it.
Runners at first and second. Count has run full on Adams. Swing and a miss. First strikeout for Straley. And it brings in Peralta. Let's turn to Rick's Toyota keys to the game.
I think about the first key, just being able to get a look at Diaz, Peralta, and Grichuk for the first time. They're getting the cobwebs out. They're playing in their first game, but we also have some new Redbirds in the bullpen today. We're going to get a look at Brett Cecil, the left-hander that the Cardinals signed during the offseason, and the guy I can't wait to see throw, Sandy Alcantara. We watched him pitch in batting practice early this week, and he's throwing 100. So that's ahead of us here this afternoon.
Cardinals strand 2. Base hit by Diaz and Molina. No score. Here's your lead it off against Mike Myers in the top of the second from Roger Dean Stadium. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest. Last year the Marlins were second in the National League behind the Rockies in average as they hit 263, but the second fewest home runs hit, just 128. And a bunch of those coming from the bat of Giancarlo Stanton.
He is out there fucking melting.
You been around him much, Rick? Stanton?
I have not.
I mean, he is a physical specimen.
Yeah.
Former football player that decided to dedicate his talent to baseball. Now entering year 3 of a 13-year, $325 million contract.
Well, when you are around him, that's one thing is clear, is how big he is. And he's so athletic and so lean and strong, you might miss his overall size. You may be surprised by that. Boy, Marlins hate to see that, don't they?
Right here.
There was a couple years ago that Stanton was hit by a pitch in Milwaukee in the cheek on the face, and that's why he wears that protective guard. Last year went down on August 13th as he had a groin injury, and he was on an 11-game stretch in which he had just gone on a tear and carried the team, and then the team went south after he went down. Count runs full, 3-2.
I think they're starting to get some pieces around them to make it not so much a Stanton or bust kind of offense. Certainly D. Gordon has added that.
That is a major league pop-up. Good luck. Wow. Grichuk had to come way in to make that catch. That gives you an idea about the wind blowing here at the ballpark today.
That's the kind of fly ball usually guys will say, I got it, I got it. And I think if you're going to mic these guys up on that particular play, you probably hear him saying, I don't want it. I don't want it, I don't want it. You take it.
Normally that's a shortstop ball right there. Here's Justin Bour.
You know you're a big-time player when you hit a pop-up and it results in some oohs and ahs.
Yeah.
That's how good Stanton is.
Nice applause.
Yeah. Wow, did you see that pop-up?
There you go. Thank you, folks.
One thing that Mike Myers has been doing for the most part is getting ahead here early on. 1 ball, 1 strike. That's popped foul and out of play. We saw Yelich go deep, and so did Justin Bour.
Same inning off a Soon-Won O. This was a no-doubter. Bour has that crazy power.
Very important spot in this lineup when you hit behind Stanton. And one of the issues that he has battled is facing left-handed pitching. To stay in that lineup every day. 1-2 pitch is popped up. They had a shift on, so a long way to go for Peralta. And that's out of play.
Bour makes me think a little bit of Matt Adams as the kind of hitter that you don't want to give up on because you're just not sure how high the ceiling might be. Bour could be a guy that spirals badly and strikes out a lot and isn't an impact guy. Or he could hit 35 home runs. And I think you could say the same thing about Matt Adams.
Here's a 1-2 again. Chopped foul.
You don't give up on power hitters. You don't give up on pitchers that throw 100. Pretty good rule of thumb.
Well, you mentioned it going to break. Sandy Alcantara. We're going to have a chance to watch him, and you wouldn't realize with his body frame that he's pumping 100. He's a lanky guy, very thin, but boy, he can sling it.
Almost a year and a month.
And he's the kind of guy, and this is why I love doing spring training games. You get a look at him now, but he'll be up at some point this year, more than likely, and can help the team. The 2-2. Out to shallow right field. Todd Cunningham is there and makes the catch. It's 5 up, 5 down for Mike Myers.
I think this is more the way Myers wanted it to go when he faced the Los Angeles Dodgers on the 24th of July last year, and it was a nightmare for him. But he's not an overpowering guy. Moves the ball around, changes speeds, kind of classic starting pitcher repertoire. But it just was not working for him that day. You just hated to see it. And part of the reason you bring up a guy like him is you're starved for arms. You need help, right? So you bring him up, and he's having a bad day. You don't want to go to your bullpen right away because you're stuck. But really tough to watch him go through that.
Ozuna with a fly ball into center. Pham leaps and got it. Tommy Pham, nice play in center field. We'll see Randall Grichuk for the first time when we come back. Grichuk will lead it off for St. Louis.
Tommy, nice catch.
Grichuk, 240 last year, was up and down a couple of times in the minor leagues, but still 24 home runs and still so much promise.
Really an odd season for him, wasn't it? As we look at the new pitcher for the Marlins, they used 9 pitchers, 1 per inning yesterday. It looks like Don Mattingly may have the same idea today. Adam Conley is one of their starters from a season ago, 8-6 record, and they'll rely on him heavily to pitch a lot of innings in 2017. But you look at the year of Randal Grichuk, and as you mentioned, he got sent down twice, yet still was an impact guy with the 24 home runs, especially late in the season. And you know, he could have gone south had he not gone down and worked at it, but to his credit, he came back positive.
Huge potential. 41 home runs combined the past 2 years. Last year, over 50% of his hits went for extra bases. And as you talked about in the open, you know, it's one thing to have that power, but with it comes some strikeouts. You know, he'd love to cut those down. Struck out 141 times last year.
Thinking about raw power potential in terms of distance, I'm only thinking of one player at the moment in the National League with more raw power potential than Randal Grichuk, and he's on that Marlins.
That's driven out to left center field. That ball will get down. Couple of hops into the wall, and Randal Grichuk on his way to second base. Nice start to his spring. When he centers a ball, it jumps off his bat.
And I'm not talking so much about number of home runs. I'm talking distance. He has such an incredibly quick bat and strong forearms. Very much into lifting weights and being fit. But he hasn't lost his bat speed. He just jumped on that delivery.
Tommy Pham with a very good play in center field moments ago on a ball that was almost out of here. That pitch is hit out of play. You know, Grichuk came back up in August, and the Cardinals basically said, sink, sink or swim.
Figure it out.
We're staying with you.
Yeah, and they did stay with him after that second recall. 48 games after the 11th of August, he hit 275. Hit 12 home runs after that particular date. A lot of extra base hits, high slugging percentage as well.
Nothing in 2 to count on Tommy Pham. Just a gorgeous day here at Roger Dean Stadium.
I don't have the numbers, Dan, handy, but thinking about the Cardinals a season ago, not their best season at getting a guy from second to third with nobody out.
Right.
Good eye.
May recall a couple of years ago we were down here doing spring training games, and Conley was the guy. He was the big prospect for the Marlins.
Right.
And as you mentioned, he'll be in that rotation this season for Miami. 1-2 is a base hit out to left field. Grichuk is held at third. So back-to-back hits for the Cardinals to start the second inning.
One thing about that Cardinal team from a year ago, all the home runs, well documented. We talked about it some yesterday. It's hard to really be thinking about moving a runner over when you've got a guy that you're more interested in hitting it over the fence and driving in too. And I think that's part of the way the offense was constructed a year ago. I think the Cardinals looking for a little more balance this year. Dexter Fowler, I think, will add to that.
There's Todd Cunningham. And the first pitch is fouled back, strike one.
Cunningham, a minor league free agent. A little bit of experience at the big league level with Los Angeles in the American League, the Angels, and switch hitter, intriguing prospect. At one point was the minor league player of the year in the Braves organization. Right. And not that long ago.
Made his major league debut at the Braves in 2013. They stole a base for Tommy Pham. Well, we also talked about this in the ball game yesterday. His fan may have broken his belt, but the Cardinals put an emphasis on running the bases last year in terms of steals in spring training. And they had 28 steals in spring and then only 35 in the regular season. And it was last in the National League.
I think that goes along with the comment about it being a power-driven offense. You're just waiting for the home run. You weren't thinking about stealing bases, moving them over. And again, you like to have balance. You like to have both. Home run certainly is a good thing to have. But if you're waiting for the home run the whole time and it doesn't happen, there's no plan B.
Jonathan Broxton is throwing in the Cardinals pen. No balls and 2 strikes on Cunningham. Eric Fryer's on deck. A fastball that's taken high. Struck him out on a pitch that was up.
Let's go, Eric.
That's the first out here in the bottom of the second. Conley, his first strikeout. That brings in Eric Fryer. Now the Cardinals had signed Brian Pena to a 2-year deal. Pena never panned out. And as you talked about, roster spot was filled, and then all of a sudden Fryer let go, picked up by Pittsburgh, and wound up doing a very serviceable job with the Pirates.
I loved his stroke when he was with the Cardinals. Short swing, take the ball the other way.
Do that. Into center field, and this will make it 2-0 St. Louis on a base hit by Eric Fryer.
There's the short swing we talked about, just back to the ball. Not a lot of movement, not a lot of expectation for power. Put the ball in play, good things happen. Fryer, by the way, went to Reynoldsburg High School in Ohio, and we know somebody else that went to that particular high school. That's the Cardinal manager, Mike Matheny.
Those two got to meet each other a couple of years ago at a parade in the hometown, and Mike was there, introduced to Fryer, and then that connection led Eric to St. Louis. That pitch taken high. 1 ball and 1 strike. Valera, switch hitter, second baseman.
Intriguing player.
Yep.
Valera was the MVP of the Venezuelan Winter League. And you say, well, big deal. Well, go watch them play. They know how to play in Venezuela. Their Winter League is extraordinarily good. Big league players will play. I mean, they're the best prospects. And he hit over 350 there. 300 career minor league hitter. And Valera is just 25. Good defensive player. Hits from both the left and the right side. So he's an intriguing prospect to me.
Here's a 2-1 pitch. Chopped foul.
And I always like the guys that when they get called up, they do better. That doesn't always happen, obviously. He got called up to AAA last year and hit 341
right
in the last 71 games. So he rose to the challenge and kept getting better.
Ledmus Diaz is on deck. 2 balls and 2 strikes. A check on Fryer. A double by Grichuk. Base hit by Pham. He stole second. Cunningham struck out, and Eric Fryer with a base hit into center to score 2. Quick move, and Fryer is back. Get a look at some of these players right now. You're not going to see them for quite some time, depending on how long their team stays in the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, and the Cardinals have a number of players heading out next week. Just got a piece.
Only the Tigers with more players selected to play in the World Baseball Classic than the Cardinals. And we're going to see one of the USA team members, Brett Cecil. We'll see him this afternoon.
Yadier Molina, Cecil, just some of the names that are headed to play for their various countries.
Matt Carpenter.
That's right. A full count. Let's see if they want to run with Fryer. And he can run. That's the other aspect of what he brings to this team. He's a catcher, but runs well. He's running. That's off of Conley. Sliding for it, and he made the play. And Justin Bohr is checking on Conley, but no one from the Marlins dugout has popped out.
That was a good at-bat. It's a hit and run. He just tried to hit the ball on the ground, and he does. But it just clips the shoe, apparently, of the pitcher Conley, who slides. Backhand flip. An awkward move to have to make for a big, tall left-hander, but it may have hurt getting hit, but boy, you don't want to give up an infield hit to go along with it.
Well, you always tell me pitchers are athletes too.
Yeah, we decided that yesterday, didn't we?
Here's Aledmys Diaz.
You said that a little sarcastically, though.
No. Diaz hit an even 300 last year, 17 home runs. He drove in 65. He finished 5th in the Rookie of the Year balloting.
Would you say surprise Cardinal of the Year a year
Absolutely.
ago?
Yeah. Yeah, we had heard about him. It was the first time the Cardinals really had gone to Cuba and signed a player that had defected from Cuba. And that's hit left side. It'll stay on the infield. And Diaz is 2 for 2. Off the glove of Prado, then into the glove of Rojas at short.
Well, they save a run at least by knocking it down 2 different times, the left side of the infield. If Prado doesn't get a glove on it, that's another Cardinal run. Really part of the defensive mindset with a runner at second base. Yes, you want to catch the ball, but you at least have to get a glove on. Keep it in the infield.
So 2 outs and 2 on, and here is Yadier Molina. He serves as the DH today. Had a base hit his first time up to center. Yadi jumps on the first pitch. Out to deep left. Ozuna spun around. Can't make the play. 1 run is in. They'll wave in Diaz. Throw to the plate. Not in time. Yadi drives in 2. I'm not sure why anybody would throw Molina a strike on the first pitch. He's so aggressive early in counts. All over that first pitch.
Loves to swing at the first pitch. Another example of it. Belt high fastball out over the plate. And Ozuna did not take a very good route on that ball. Circled it a bit. Again, the wind is circling too, so he's struggling with that a bit. But that ball was smoked by Yadi.
Come on, Matt.
Here's Adams, who struck out his first time up. And the first pitch is taken for a strike. The talk for so long with Adams too is about facing left-handed pitching, so this is a good test for him.
It is.
And the 0-1 to Matt Adams.
He's also getting tested, and it's so early, but that's part of the point I'm getting ready to make. 3 out of his first 4 at-bats he struck out. The test will be, do you stay with your new style of hitting and get comfortable with it before making drastic changes again? I think that's going to be important for him.
2 strikes on Adams. Matt, last year, one of the best pinch hitters on the club, finished up at 249, 16 home runs, and drove in 54. 2-2 the count. Molina at second base, 4-0 St. Louis here in the bottom of the second. Adams with a fly ball to left field. Ozuna that time makes the catch. Cardinals pick up 4 runs. Eric Fryer with a base hit that scored Grichuk and Pham. Then it was Yachty's turn. Jonathan Broxton back for another season with the Cardinals. 4-0 here in the top of the third. And this is our Chevy called to the pen.
Broxton had good numbers out of the Cardinals bullpen in 2015 in the 26 games after coming over from Milwaukee. He had an up and down season a year ago. Ended up with a 4.30 ERA, but had some good stretches, was busy, 66 appearances.
This is JT Realmuto, very good athlete, former high school shortstop, now catcher. He'll be their everyday catcher for the Marlins. Backup will be A.J. Ellis, who reunites with Don Mattingly. And Jeff Mathis, who was the backup a year ago, signed with Arizona. Some talk that Realmuto would play first base as well.
Broxton had some moments a year ago where he was throwing 90-91, and then a couple appearances later you look up and it's 96. He had a lot of variance. Mike Matheny saying before the game today that he's really going to work on getting true answers from his relievers about how they feel on a given day. Point being that if you ask them, are you ready, they'll always say yes. And you have to get maybe a deeper answer of, yes, you're ready, but maybe you don't feel 100%. He's trying to get that next level from some of the relievers, and they're having some conversations about that, about how to do that.
3-1 is pounded on the ground. Nice play. Peralta on the backhand. The big league play right there.
Yes, it is. All smiles. Johnny indeed a big leaguer. Soft hands. That's how he catches this. On the backhand. Very smooth. Well, that play looked tough, but it was even tougher than that to execute.
One out, and here is Miguel Rojas. Very good defender for Miami. Plays all over the infield. And the first pitch is taken high. Jonathan Broxton, he's been around for quite some time now. Came up in 2005 with the Dodgers. Two-time All-Star when he was their closer. He's pitched with Kansas City, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, and back for his second full season with the Cardinals in 2017.
I'm hoping this season that Cardinal fans will get a chance to get to know Broxton a little bit better than maybe they did a year ago on the personal side. He's very quiet, but the teammates love him. He's got a great sense of humor. He's very kind of got a unique sense of humor, kind of the deadpan look, but he'll say some little jabs here and there. But a really supportive teammate, hard worker.
Two balls and one strike. Ground ball again to Peralta. 2 away. The 2017 season features great giveaways all season long, including 6 jersey giveaways, like the Blues batting practice jersey and a Kelly Green Cardinals jersey. Tickets to all the jersey giveaway games can be had with the 10-game jersey pack or buy them as a single game ticket. On sale now at Cardinals.com. So 2 outs, and now it's Ellis. Talked a little bit about it yesterday. The controversial deal that brought Ellis to the Phillies, and he was the personal catcher for Clayton Kershaw for a number of seasons with the Dodgers. And now he reunites with Donnie Baseball.
That personal catcher job is a good job to have, isn't it?
I'd say.
Always thought that about Tim McCarver, who was one of our teammates on Fox Sports Midwest, that's almost maybe the wrong way to talk about Tim McCarver. He was a great player, really good player, but we talk about him often. Well, he was McCarver's personal, or Carlton's personal catcher, and Gibson, but no, he was an all-star.
He was a lot more than that.
Oh, exactly. Now, maybe at the end of his career, extended it a bit, which if you're a catcher and you can do that, why not?
But really, you need to go back. You know, 1967, we're celebrating the 50th year of that team. Look at the season that Tim McCarver had. He was among the league leaders at hitting.
It was his best season in '67. I believe he was just 24 years of age and had already had 5 or 6 full seasons in the big leagues.
Played in 4 decades. And Tim will be back with us this year, and Al Raboski, Jim Edmonds. 3 balls, 2 strikes on Ellis. 4-0 St. Louis. A little bit high. And a 2-out walk, and the first base runner for the Marlins today. Back to the top of the lineup, and Derek Dietrich. Don Mattingly is back at the helm of the Marlins. They finished up 79 and 82 last year. So they improved by 8 games from the year before. Talk about great players. Don Mattingly, one of the great players that does not maybe get enough credit. He lives in Evansville, Indiana, and puts on a big fundraiser every year in Evansville, and has asked a lot of the Cardinals and former players from St. Louis to make that trip, and there's a couple of fundraisers there. Good guy.
Some would say one of the best defensive first basemen in the history of the game. heard his name mentioned. But of course, Keith Hernandez was outstanding defensively, Cardinal and Met player. But Mattingly was so smooth around the bag and had a beautiful swing.
Here's a 1-1. With a chance to briefly visit with Ozzie Smith yesterday. He is in camp and working with the infielders. They've really tried to break open the camp in terms of, if you want to get work with Ozzie Smith and you're Ledmus Diaz, he's here. Jose Oquendo, they're here.
Here's my number.
Yeah. Ozzie and the Cardinals have a really fun deal coming up this summer at Cooperstown. There's a swing and a miss by Dietrich and a strikeout for Broxton. Coming up, Johnny Peralta, Randall Grichuk, Tommy Pham. 4-0 St. Louis.
You don't look like you.
In Jupiter, Florida. Beautiful afternoon. 4-0 Cardinals. Along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. This is our Chevy call to the pen. Junichi Tazawa, one of the free agent signings for the Marlins to help out in their bullpen. They've got some pretty good names down there and guys that have been productive. Brad Ziegler.
Yes.
He has signed on to maybe potentially close and set up. They've got A.J. Ramos, David Phelps, Dustin McGowan, Cal Barraclaw, who we saw in the Cardinals system. That's one that probably got away, huh?
Yeah, Barraclaw had a terrific season a year ago. Big strikeout guy, and Cardinals developed him, but the Marlins are reaping the benefits.
Marlins had 29 blown saves. Most in club history, second most in the National League behind the Giants. This is Johnny Peralta at the plate. He'll be the everyday third baseman, more than likely. And you say that, and then you think, well, what happens to Jed Jerko? Where's he going to play? And he's the guy that had 30 home runs a year ago.
That's a nice problem to have, and you know how it is, Dan. As the season progresses, you're going to get at bats for an extra player. Probably get 400 or 500 at bats out of your ninth defensive player, because guys will have to have days off, and you have injuries, and you have times you just want to sit a guy out for rest, and you really like to have depth on your bench. You don't want just guys on the bench you're not comfortable with, throwing them out there for a series and expecting production out of them.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Peralta hit into a fielder's choice his first time up.
Yeah.
just was never able to get fully healthy a year ago. Sliding for a ball on the infield. Had the thumb issue and then came back after surgery and still probably wasn't 100%. Tough play at third. It's Martin Prado over there. And Peralta is retired.
Some good, smooth defensive plays in this game already. Prado comes up with this one. Peralta had one on the backhand. And that's how you do it on the forehand by Prado. Well, you mentioned Ozzie Smith, Dan, last inning, and defense certainly a premium part of the conversation here in spring training about improving on the defense from a year ago. Part of that mix is Grichuk going to left field, Fowler playing center.
First pitch to Randall. He's taken for a ball. He doubled and scored back in a 4-run second inning. That's hit sharply foul. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Crowded bullpen here. Really, both of them. You have 68 to 70 players on both rosters. Got to sit somewhere. Well, I get or stand.
You know, the bullpens have been removed at Wrigley Field. With the renovations, you will not have bullpens in play. Here's a 1-1 pitch. Speaking of Ozzie Smith, he has an incredible experience coming up. We always talk about the fantasy camp. Well, this year they're taking the fantasy camp to Cooperstown.
Taking it on the road.
Yeah. Only a few spots left for that. Fantasy camp at Cardinals.com. But you get a private tour of Cooperstown with Ozzie and play at that complex. That's fouled back.
Not sure I've ever told you my story, Dan. I probably have. You heard most of my stories about signing an autograph in Cooperstown when I was 15 years of age and pretending to be a major league player. There were other players touring Cooperstown, and I was getting
right?
I had Willie Mays' autograph. He was a Met at the time, and I just decided I would pretend to be his teammate. And I was signing autographs for about 10 minutes for people that thought they were getting a autograph of a rookie Met as opposed to a sophomore in high school. Just happened to be there.
Why would you do that? What's wrong with you?
Well, you know all the answers to that question. It's because it was fun, Dan.
The 1-2 is taken high.
Felt a little guilty about it afterwards.
No, you didn't.
But
you
I
had fun. You were 15 years old.
But I can say I signed my first autograph at Cooperstown.
Not many can lay claim to that. Of course, I made you sign for the fans in Los Angeles a few years ago.
Oh, that was terrible.
We were in an elevator, and I asked the fan, strikeout of Grichuk, if they happen to be fans of the Dodgers, and in particular the 1988 championship team. And they said, well, yeah, we're big fans. I said, I'll tell you right now, then, you need to get this man's autograph. He was a part of the world champions. That's Rick Horton. And all of a sudden, Ricky, you were stuck doing autographs. I know you were happy to do it. You were thrilled.
Have you noticed I haven't been on an elevator with you since?
I've noticed you avoid me at all costs. I get it.
Now you know why.
Here's Tommy Pham, 2 outs, nobody on. So Pham is part of that competition to make this team. Now he's out of options,
right?
But could be your 4th or 5th outfielder. Jordan Schaefer will be in that conversation. Martinez as well.
Hey, the water? You got water?
Yeah, how many?
Pham with a base hit and a run scored his first time up. One ball and 1 strike. So what's on the schedule for you tomorrow? On the backfields, you're going to go check out some of the younger players?
Well, the minor leaguers won't be here yet.
The step camp.
Yeah, the step camp will be. And I'm anxious to connect with those guys and the development people in the organization I have great respect for. The minor league players, the pitchers and the hitters, they'll show up about the 6th or 7th of March. So that seems a bit late for me, frankly. I usually expect them around the 1st, but they get here 6th or 7th. Their spring training, of course, shorter, but when they get here, there's a couple of hundred of them, Dan. And it's a lot of work to do quickly to establish who goes where in the minor league system.
The complex here is set up, too, to where the minor leaguers will mingle with the major leaguers, and that's a good thing, you know, for those young players to see how it happens for a big leaguer in many ways. 3-1 pitch to Tommy Pham. And it's a 2-out walk.
There you go. Go, Tommy.
I was thinking about
Cunningham.
Thinking about that years ago, Dan, and realizing that this is hard to believe that it was 1998 when the Cardinals moved here to Jupiter. It's been a long time now, what, 19 years of being in Jupiter, but 52 years in St. Petersburg, Florida. Began training there in 1946 all the way through 1997, and that was a different setup. The minor league complex was miles away from Al Lang Stadium where the big leaguers were, so you did not have that mingling. You did not have that connection. It was really disjointed just because of the facility, but I do like the way it's all in one here, and you get a chance to be very close to that big league field, and I think it helps establish that dream.
There's a 1-0 pitch to Cunningham. Struck out his first time up. Cliff Polite threw the first ever pitch in spring training for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Did he really?
Yep.
I'll play with like you can just get some bad.
Cliff loves to participate in the fantasy camp we talked about earlier, and dozens of former Cardinals. Had some new ones this year. Woody Williams. Oh, really? Good to see him. He's coaching college baseball
In Texas?
in Texas.
Yeah. What a trade that wound up being for the Cardinals. One that flew under the radar as he came from San Diego and really changed the fortunes of that club and then stayed on. As Cunningham swings and misses. With the Cardinals strand a runner. St. Louis on top. Spring training baseball on Fox Sports Midwest.
Power steering pump.
First look at Brett Cecil, signed in the offseason by the Cardinals as he picked up a 4-year deal. And he's a former first-round pick. And this is his first organization other than the Blue Jays, and he was a good one in Toronto.
Well, he's always been good against left-handed hitters, and look at some of his ranks among left-handed relievers since 2013. He has been in a lot of games. ERA under 3. Last year did not have good numbers. He was 1-7 last year with a good team, which you'd say, wow, that's a nice contract for a guy that was 1-7 with a good team. But his numbers were better than that in terms of batting average against, and again can be very tough on lefties. Has a good breaking ball. I mean a plus breaking ball.
Cardinals had the bad news with Zach Duke, and he was tremendous after coming over from the White Sox, a trade deadline deal, and Zach is actually in camp but can't throw. Good changeup there by Cecil.
Well, Duke's feeling is he wants to be around everybody. He wants to have the experience with them. So if he does, by some chance, get a chance to pitch late in the season, which I think is a possibility, he'll feel like he's part of the deal. There's that breaking ball. Wow. Hard, sharp, downward action.
As crazy as this sounds, this is his first appearance for his new team. You think there's butterflies even in a spring training game for Brett Cecil right now?
I have no doubt. You want to impress.
And a base hit out to left. So Prado is aboard, and that's the first hit for the Marlins in this game. I know you were thinking no-hitter all the way.
Well, I just said it during break, didn't I?
Yeah. You jinxed it.
I jinxed the no-hitter. Oh, well.
So this is the kind of matchup, though, that you'd be accustomed to maybe seeing in the regular season. Yelich against Cecil.
Cecil early in his career was a starter with Toronto when he was young, and I think they felt that he had enough stuff to get lefties and righties out. They turned him into a reliever, and certainly been one of the top ones in baseball from the left side since then. But I wouldn't discount him being a guy that could go multiple innings out of the bullpen. A lot of talk about Trevor Rosenthal being that kind of pitcher, that maybe he'll have 1 or 2 inning stints in the middle of the game. We'll see Rosenthal, or Rosenthal will pitch tomorrow here as part of the split squad that stays here in Jupiter. Bit of a herky-jerky delivery, kind of a 2-part motion. Slings it a bit. Got the changeup grip in his hand to start with. And then he'll either keep it there or change it.
Split squad in February.
Which means everybody's playing.
Yeah. From a manager's perspective, I think at least this early in spring, you get worried about covering innings.
That's the bigger part. You don't worry about having enough players, because there are enough players that you can split up, and of course you don't have minor league players here to augment it, but you want to get at bats for guys early, and that's a good thing. Let them play five innings, and you've got enough for four full squads, really. But pitching only because they can't go deep.
3-1 pitch and a base hit into right. So the first 2 have reached, and it brings in Stanton.
Well, here's the lefty-lefty thing we were talking about, down and in. Often a good sweet spot area for a left-handed batter. Typically like the ball down.
Yelich is smooth, isn't he? Nice player.
Yes, he is.
So here is Stanton, who flied to left field. It was a towering pop-up into shallow left.
Yes, she did.
Did you say that pop-up, he might have hit that ball 400 feet?
Yeah. Seriously.
I think so. You mentioned having butterflies as a pitcher, even as a veteran. I think there are times you're facing a guy like Stanton where you get a few extra butterflies. You're thinking, boy, I love this challenge, but I really don't want him to hit a line drive up the middle. Just don't.
You know, we have StatCast, and his home run on August 6th went 504 feet. Longest home run recorded by StatCast. 504 feet. One ball and 2 strikes. Inning started with a base hit by Prado. Yelich, he followed with a base hit into right. And now the 1-2. Struck him out. So Cecil gets Stanton, and it brings in Justin Moore.
Sometimes you can crowd Stanton. That's why he gets hit a lot. I think they try to pitch him inside. I think maybe there's a little bit of a hole down and inside half, and he looks a little awkward in his approach on that particular pitch, and Cecil threw a couple pitches in there to get him.
It's a good test here for Justin Moore, and we talked about it earlier. Can he hit left-handed pitching? Last year, .233 average with only 2 RBIs. So they're looking at the potential of platooning Moore with maybe Real Muto, Miguel Rojas, Derek Dietrich. All are options and on the table right now for the Marlins. One ball, 1 strike. Moore is 0 for 1. He flied out to right.
There's also a learning curve with a pitcher when he comes to a new team. The catchers have to learn what you do well, and that's part of your responsibility, is to teach them that. You know, where do you want to go first pitch? Where do you want to go when you're behind? Where do you want to go when you're ahead? How do you like to finish off lefties? How do you like to finish off righties? All those things are your answers, your comfort zone, and you have to get your catchers up to speed with that. And if you're in spring training, that's about 10 catchers that you have to get up to speed, and the catchers have about 30 pitchers they have to learn.
That's a nasty pitch right there. Moore could not hold up. 2-2 the count.
This is so sharp. Downward break.
Two balls and 2 strikes. The next 2 Moore. Out to center field. And making the catch on the run, it's Tommy Pham. That's his second fine defensive play that we've had in this game.
I've long felt that Tommy Pham is a better defensive player than he has shown us. And I think injuries are part of that. He's also moved around from left to right to center. I think he's better in center. Gets a good jump. He was voted multiple years in a row as the best Cardinal defensive outfielder with the best arm. We've not seen the arm at this level either. But I again think injuries have had something to do with that.
Brings in Marcell Ozuna. Made his first All-Star team a year ago. We talked about it, the trio, the outfielders that the Marlins have. All 3 had 20 or more home runs. So production, Ozuna, an All-Star. Remember the year before he had been sent down to the minor leagues? Well, he bounced back quite nicely.
There was a contract issue with that,
yes,
as I recall.
0-2. Runners at first and second. No balls, 2 strikes. And now time is called.
I think I just heard a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the Cardinal bullpen.
Sandy's throwing, huh?
Caught my attention. That will be a treat.
That's it out of play. Had the chance to watch him a little bit on the backfields and just how free and easy and the ball just explodes out of his hand.
Well, arm speed is what you notice. And, you know, he's just throwing right now. He's not really letting it go. There's Blaze Ilsley, the Cardinal bullpen coach, who does a great job. Always good to reconnect with Blazer.
And the 0-2 struck him out. So after back-to-back singles, Brett Cecil in his Cardinal debut gets the 3 outs right in a row and no damage done. An all-star a year ago. First onto the scene on Let Miss Diaz. He's due up when we come back. Ball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you in part by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals, and by Steak and Shake. 24 meals under $4. Just a gorgeous day again here at Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. 4-0 St. Louis. Eric Fryer with a base hit that scored 2. Yadier Molina with a double that scored 2. And it's 4-0. The new pitcher is Guerra for the Marlins. Hard-throwing right-hander. They have a bullpen that throws hard. I mean, they've got a lot of hard throwers out there. But they also had a bullpen a year ago that walked a lot of hitters, too. So while their strikeouts were up, so were the walks.
Well, one thing's for sure, Dan, we're going to see every one of their pitchers in the first 2 games of this spring training season. They're going 1 inning at a time. Guerra already pitcher number 4 today. He's had a resurgence in his career.
Here's an 0-2 pitch to Eric Fryer. Very well could be your backup catcher this season for the Cardinals. This is game 2 of 15 that will be bringing to the fan base of the Cardinals. 15 spring training games on Fox Sports Midwest. We actually have a couple games where you'll be working with Dick Bremer, I believe, for the Minnesota Twins. Is that right?
Had a chance to do that before with Dick, and I try to keep them from showing me the World Series championship ring from 1987. And that's,
I can understand
that's
that.
something we do have conversation about. In fact, Bert Blyleven, one of the times we did it with the Twins crew, Bert was there as well, had his ring.
Pains you, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, stings.
But we're celebrating 30 years of that particular series.
Fryer with a fly ball into left center, and it's dropped. Yelich couldn't come up with it. Fryer was hustling all the way, and he's headed to third and in there safely. Give him credit for hustling.
100%. Thinking exactly the same thing. You got a Gold Glove outfielder who everybody thinks is going to catch this ball, but guess what? He doesn't. Swirling wind results in a 3-base error, but it would have been a 2-base error had Fryer took it for granted that he was going to make that play. And he does run well. You mentioned earlier, it's not just hustle, he also has speed for a catcher.
The top of the lineup, and Valera. Ledmus Diaz is on deck. The corners are in with a runner at third base. So take a look. This is your backup catcher, and the Cardinals last year we saw he'll give you everything he's got. Never takes a play off, but he can run and runs well.
There was a lot of want to in that at bat.
Yeah. That's popped foul and out of play.
The moment it appears to be scored as a triple, but it is spring training, so it's early.
So the official scorekeeper's in spring training mode too,
apparently.
Eric Fryer's happy. Here's a 1-1 pitch. Pulled foul. Sandy Alcantara is loosening in the Cardinals' pen. Sandy is listed at 6'4", 170.
I think 170 is a bit of an exaggeration. Bright future ahead for that young man from the Dominican Republic.
Signed for $125,000 at the age of 17 by the Cardinals. He has hit 102 on the gun. That's been the highest registered fastball that he's thrown, but consistently hitting 100. You know, John Mozeliak, the Cardinals GM, told me, I guess it was about this time last year, he said, you know, you may not see these guys in spring training, but we have 3, 4, maybe 5 that are hitting 100 routinely. He said it's just incredible how hard these young kids are starting to throw. And that was one of them right there. Look what I found. Guerra makes a nice play and gets the out. Saved a run, too.
Well, that's a good at-bat by Valera. It doesn't end up with results. In fact, that's 2 at-bats in a row where he's hit the ball off the pitcher. This time that would have gone into center field if Guerra hadn't gotten a glove on it. So Valera hustles down the line as well. My take on Valera after watching him, he's 0 for 3 in this game, but I like him.
Ledmus Diaz. Fryer will tag.
He's got an arm.
Catch is made. Throw to the plate. Wow, what a play. Fryer safe at the plate, but what a throw in right from Stanton. My goodness.
Don't you love watching that? Gets behind the ball pretty well. Strong throw on the fly, right on the money. But Fryer, who is on third and not second, is able to score because of his hustle. You talk about the Cardinals needing to be aggressive on the bases. It's not just stealing. It's extra bases. It's coming out of the box thinking 3 instead of 2. All those things can add up to runs, and it just did there.
Love seeing a guy throw. You know, those power arms and right. You don't see him all that much, it seems like, in today's day and age of baseball. I mean, to me, when watching Dave Parker throw.
Dave Parker, Ellis Valentine, Andy Van Slyke, Mark Whitten. Jack Clark had a great arm when he was young, playing in the outfield for the Giants.
That's the other thing. You come down to spring training, you see infield and outfield being done and worked on every single day, which may not necessarily be the case during the regular season, especially in the heat of St. Louis.
Go, Yanni.
The 2-1 pitch to Molina.
I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, somebody's going to figure out that we need to hit less, and we need to run more, and we need to play defense more. I'm talking about in pregame warm-ups. That there'll be more days saying, you know what, we're not going to hit today. All we're going to do is take infield, or all we're going to do is run the bases.
And that's taken outside. This may be it for Yadier Molina. Yadi trotting down to first base.
If somebody tries that routine, Dan, and it works, then everybody will be doing it.
Well, that's copycat, right?
Right.
Sports. Nice round of applause for Yadier Molina.
Nice day for him.
A couple of base hits and 2 RBIs. Here is Matt Adams.
That's Andrew Kisner, one of the Cardinals' extra catchers here in spring training. He's pinch running for Yadi.
Adams was one of the top pinch hitters in baseball a year ago. We talked a lot about how he has redistributed some of that weight that he's had, and he's come in great condition, and credits Pilates for a lot of that. Worked out a couple of times every day, changed his eating habits, and has put himself in a nice position. 1 ball and 1 strike. You know, we talk so much about the defense of the Cardinals, and fans will ask, well, what about Jose Oquendo? Oquendo is going to stay in the organization, but he's going to work here in Florida with a lot of the young players and instruct here, so he will not be with the big league club. One ball, 1 strike. I would imagine, and you're very close to Jose, your former teammate, it had to be extremely frustrating for him to sit back, watch on TV, and know down here because of his knees and going through rehab that he couldn't have an effect with the big club.
Well, anybody who's been through rehab knows how that can be frustrating enough. I mean, you got to deal with, can't walk up and down stairs. You got to do the exercises that hurt, and I mean, it's difficult when you have that kind of knee surgery that he had just to come back, period. But to realize that you weren't able to do what you love to do and have been doing since you were, in Jose's case, 16 years of age. Coming to spring training, being a part of it, staying with a team. Now you're disconnected. I mean, it's the first time he has not been connected to a team since he was 16.
Right. What a great teacher he is. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Adams. And he strikes out. Another look at the throw by Giancarlo Stanton in right. A cannon. Fryer just beat the tag and makes it 5-0 St. Louis. Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you in part by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by the Chevy Silverado, the new face of strong. Chevrolet. Find new roads at your local Mid-America Chevy dealer. Gorgeous day here at Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter. It's our Chevy call to the pen. Sandy Alcantara. Our first look at this big right-hander, big arm, routinely hitting 100 miles an hour last year as he was called up to Palm Beach.
150 plus strikeouts a year ago. Well over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings.
Made 17 starts with Peoria, the Midwest League, and had 119 strikeouts. Then he goes to Palm Beach, made 6 starts, and struck out 34.
His mix of pitches includes the high-octane fastball, a good curveball, and a developing changeup.
Right back up the middle. Mishandled and a base hit. Real Muto is aboard. That's one of the changes there for the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's Alvarez playing second base, Sosa the shortstop.
And then that'll be it for Real Muto. Miguel Rojas is at the plate. 5-0 Cardinals here in the top of the 5th. Free and easy, Rick.
Oh. Well, that's what you look for in a young pitcher. That's what the scouts just salivate over, when a guy can throw hard without trying to. It just comes out of your hand with a nice smooth delivery. The arm speed is there.
In on the hands. Fly ball into shallow right center. That's one of the regulars still in there, Tommy Pham. Cardinals spring training is always best. You can watch it on MLB.com at bat. Mobile app. Stay connected all spring with radio broadcasts, video highlights, stats, news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat today. It's your #1 app for live baseball. So 1-out runner at first. Sandy was signed back in 2014. This is A.J. Ellis at the plate. He's got a very compact delivery, too. Very similar to Alex Reyes.
Yeah, there's nothing complicated about it. Very smooth. And the ball just jumping out of his hand. He's over the top. He's not slinging it downhill. He's got a lot of downhill to work with, being as tall as he is. And he's going to develop that frame, too. He'll get bigger. He'll fill out.
Absolutely. Here's a 1-1. There's that breaking ball. Alex Reyes had actually dropped about 10 or 15 pounds coming into this camp, too.
Really fun to watch. Somebody as gifted as this young man. And of course, it's not just about velocity. And you look at his record in minor league, kind of 500 pitcher, but you see that once he figures it out, how to use the tools that he has, he's got such a high ceiling.
Here's a 3-1 pitch to Ellis. Hit down the right field line, and that wind will carry that out of play.
Seen some defensive swings against him because the ball's getting on you in a hurry. That'll play in the big leagues.
Full count. Let's see if they want to start the runner here. He is running. Pitch is taken high, and it's a walk. So 2 on against Alcantara. And Derek Dietrich will step in.
You look at the minor league walk totals for Alcantara. They are higher than you'd like, but not crazy high. And you think that there could be some adjustments there. And you think about a guy throwing as hard as he does at lower levels. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of guys just hoping for a walk.
Absolutely. It's a good point.
Think about the approach. It's not like hey, where they're swinging and putting a lot of balls in play against him either. A lot of swings and misses because of the plus velocity.
The Cardinals in recent history with a guy like Alcantara, you go back to, let's say, a Trevor Rosenthal or even an Alex Reyes, where once you hit high A, I mean, they move these guys quickly.
Yes. Well, it's because their skills play at higher levels.
Yeah.
But you have to still master the strike zone. You have to master the second pitch, the third pitch.
Here's a 1-0.
A really good changeup at 88 miles an hour.
A changeup at 88. Yikes.
Painful for me to say that.
What were you topping out at?
Less than 88.
Here's a 1-1. You were the crafty lefty.
Yeah, that's what they say. Crafty. Crafty is a euphemism for couldn't throw hard.
Well, 85, 87, 88 postseason teams, World Series ring. Played out all right.
Played out okay. Key is to have good teammates.
Yes, sir. Here's a 2-1.
Another good changeup. It's got good action to it. A little down and away movement.
Think about it too, Rick. The count. 2-1. He just walked the guy.
Yeah.
He had 2 runners on. And he goes with an off-speed pitch.
The fastball in on the hands. He'll jam him here.
Here's a 2-2. Or he might do that. Lost the bat.
Well, he was looking for that fastball in, and he got another changeup. He was geared up. Dietrich was listening to me. And Alcantara pulls the string again, so the bat goes one direction. And Dietrich has to go in another.
This will be a fun matchup here. Martin Prado hit over 300 a season ago. An outstanding season with the Marlins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good breaking ball.
Well, the tools are there.
Go, Sandy.
Tools are there, Dan, but you hope the artist emerges.
Ooh. Jumps on that pitch. The fastball out to deep left field. And it stays in the ballpark. Knocked down by the wind, so 1 run does score. And that'll be a double for Martin Prado. Normally, that's a home run. Wind knocked it down, and then the left fielder overran it.
I've seen a couple of plays like that in left field today. The wind's blowing out very briskly to right field. Saw 5 home runs yesterday, so it's sun and wind that our left fielder Anthony Garcia is dealing with.
Here's Yelich. A home run yesterday, couple of RBIs. Marlins now get on the board. It's 5-1. Runners at second and third. Fastball taken high and away. 1-0 pitch. And you look at that delivery. It's nothing fancy. Very compact.
Word of encouragement from Jose Martinez. Cardinals actually with an entirely Latin infield at the moment. You just wonder whether that's by design to make him feel comfortable. He's a young guy trying to look for familiar surroundings. Still learning the language.
2-0 pitch to Garcia. Late break. Can't come up with it. The ball will find you. That's what's happened here for Anthony Garcia.
Yeah, and I can't really fault him on that either. That is, again, the wind just playing tricks with him. That is not an easy play. Tries to catch it on the dive, but by that time it's too late. Took that first step, kind of hesitated on the first step. The ball was hit hard, but the wind just knocking it down. Not really a fair inning for Alcantara.
No. Should be out of it. So now he gets Giancarlo Stanton. That's ball one. Stanton still looking for his first hit this spring.
Yeah, that's how crazy it's going to be. The wind's going to pick it up.
Knock it, of course.
Yeah, he is going to.
It's sharply down into the corner, and this will make it a 5-4 St. Louis lead. RBI double for Stanton. Be curious to know the exit velocity on that one.
Well, it was 97 coming in, and it was more than that coming out. Guess 104, 105 based on what we've seen. And there's another pitch inside half. He just turns on it. It's a pretty tough league when guys are turning on 97 in the inner half.
Yeah. Also left that pitch up where lower levels of baseball he might get away with that, but not with Stanton and some of the others that he's faced here in this inning. Now it's Justin Bour.
All this is part of the experience, though, for Alcantara, and yes, it should have been a better inning for him, but you still wouldn't call it a good one. He walked Ellis with one on and one out. That really set up the inning. He gets Ellis out, doesn't get behind him, then he's sitting down and his appearance is over. So I'm sure he'll learn from this. And you play against tough competition, it makes you better. It can make you better. So he'll go back to the minor leagues, go back to wherever level he'll start at, AA, AAA, and I suspect he's going to have a very good season, and we will see him again.
It's one of those situations, too, where more than likely you'll get an extended look here at spring training, too.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see him.
He's not moving now, but the point is, there's no thought in mind for him starting in the Cardinals rotation or bullpen in April. But you mentioned John Mozeliak is high on his chances of being a Cardinal sometime during the season.
2-2 the count. And the next two, Bour with the tying run at second base, pulled the string and a strikeout. First look at Alcantara. Marlins get on the board. We've got a game. It's now 5-4.
You don't look like you'll
Stadium in Jupiter, Florida, 5-4. Cardinals have the lead. Brian Ellington, last year, 32 games that he appeared in, went 4-2. Leading off for the Cardinals would be Wilfredo Tovar. See a lot of the minor leaguers from here on out. And the first pitch is a strike, and we're underway. Tovar in the minor leagues last year at .249. Ground ball that's hit to short. One away.
Tommy the GOAT.
We talked earlier, Dan, about Joe Torre and Major League Baseball impressing upon all of the teams to make sure that they're playing enough of their starters, especially for their broadcast partners that are covering games in spring training. Fans want to see their favorite players. They want to see Dexter Fowler. They want to see Aledmus Diaz. They want to see Matt Carpenter play. And so teams are really being monitored. And that's always been true. It's always been suggested, but I think it's a little bit more than the suggestion now.
Well, there was a rule that, especially, for instance, if the Cardinals go to Atlanta, they go to Orlando and they make that trip to where it was something like 3 or 4 regulars had to be in the starting lineup. Right. It was mandated. Now, they may be out there for 2 innings and then taken out of the game, but you had to start with some major league players.
And a little bit problematic thinking about, as we mentioned, the split squad game tomorrow. Very anxious to see the starts of both Lance Lynn and Michael Wacha. When it can't be in 2 places at one time, they're both pitching for different halves of the Cardinal roster, but they're both getting starts tomorrow, and key players as far as the Cardinals' fortunes are concerned.
Anthony Garcia at the plate. Split time between AA Springfield and Memphis. It's a fly ball into center. The catch is made. 2 down. Cardinals will open up the regular season Sunday Night Baseball against the world champion Cubs. And we will have the pregame for the home opener, not the game. And the pregame will include, of course, the Clydesdales and the Hall of Famers.
Oh, boy.
One of the great traditions in baseball. So we'll bring that to our fans.
St. Louis Cardinals know how to do opening day.
Yes, they do. Tommy Pham chops it foul.
And I don't say that to be arrogant about the Cardinals or critical of others, but there's just something about the history of the Cardinals and the community connection. Everybody's so happy to have the team up north again. And, of course, every team has a semblance of that. But when you go to an opening day at other cities, and we will do that from time to time, we'll go to an opener in another ballpark because of the way the schedule goes, but it's just not the same.
Tommy.
Here's an 0-1 pitch to Pham. Well, you know it's special when the opposing players are talking about it.
Right.
You know, we've had players that maybe are on the opposite side, then they come to St. Louis and they say, I witnessed a opening day as an opposing player, and it really is something that is unique and special to St. Louis. You hear that all the time.
And again, it's not just St. Louis, but I remember moments where I had a chance to be at a special day at Yankee Stadium years ago, and DiMaggio and Mantle and Berra and Whitey Ford are there. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And so as a visiting team member at the time, I'm in that dugout watching that because that's a big deal. The Dodgers can put on a show like that with some of their great stars.
1-2 is taken high, evens it up. I thought one of the best moments we had last year was Lou Brock walking out to throw out the ceremonial first pitch.
That moment was not lost on the fans.
No.
The significance of it.
2-2. Little squibber that's hit to first, and Pham is retired. So 1-2-3 for Ellington. Sends us to inning number 6. Birds on top, 5-4. Is coming up, returns March 6th through the 22nd. Don't miss your chance to see the best players compete for their country. And you can get your tickets now at worldbaseballclassic.com.
Little surprised, but Alcantara back out for a second inning. Got roughed up a bit last inning. Was not really a fair inning in some ways. A couple of balls could have been caught and left, but gave up 4 runs, but back out 4. The top of the 6th.
Matt Dendecker, the former Met.
And more changes for the Cardinals. Magneuris Sierra will play center. Alberto Rosario, the catcher. So now just talking about the World Baseball Classic, only one American player on the field at the moment for the Cardinals. That's the right fielder.
One ball and 1 strike.
Trying to get you to do this inning in Spanish, but clearly you're not going to.
No, it's not going to happen, Rick. You can handle this at bat, though. Go for it.
No. Go ahead.
Here's a 1-1. That was a fun moment last year. We had the Spanish broadcast, and Molina hits a home run with his brother behind the microphone.
That's the special thing about baseball that gets lost in the conversation about changing the way we do the game. You just never know when those moments are going to happen. Holiday's home run, Diaz's home run that you mentioned earlier, the Molina game with his brother. I mean, that's just, you can't script that. Can't force it.
Wainwright's complete game against the Marlins, with the 06 championship team being celebrated that night. I just wonder if Mike Matheny thought here in this situation with Sandy, let him go out there and have a good feeling about an outing. You know, last inning was tough defensively behind him, but have that good feeling, maybe face 1 or 2 hitters, and then that could be it. Cardinals right now have a right-hander getting loose.
And he is a starter. You know, it's the other thing to think about with him now. And I think for the time being, they are projecting him to be a starter, not a reliever. They think he has a 3-pitch repertoire enough to be a starting pitcher and a top-line starter. So they're not ready to throw him in the bullpen and make him a closer yet.
It's a foul ball.
Had that conversation about Carlos Martinez at one point, if you recall. Where does he go? Bullpen, starter, bullpen,
Sure.
and it was unclear. The Cardinals felt that he had enough to be a starter, and they made the right call on that one.
So the count is full on Matt Decker. Cabrera is on deck. Fly ball out to shallow left.
Ball's finding him.
Yeah, Garcia that time is able to make the play. Here's Ramon Cabrera. 5-4 Cardinals. Cardinals picked up 4 runs in the second, 1 in the fourth, and the Marlins came back with 4 in the top of the fifth. It was a breaking ball taken low. One ball and 1 strike.
I think your point is right, Dan. I think Mike Matheny, Derek Lilliquist thinking, let's just see if we can get him a good, clean inning and feel good about his performance. End on a good note. That's the goal. But you don't want him to go too far, and they won't. They're probably thinking about that now. What's the pitch count limit for him?
And there's a walk to Cabrera. So many times, though, you see the highly thought of prospects. I mean, you treat them with kid gloves. And yes, he will be a starter, and yes, he will be extended, but it's so early. You know, usually it's 1 inning, and that's it.
And the kid gloves part, you might say, well, he's 21. Physically, he can handle anything, and that's probably true. But it's not the physical part. It's the emotional, mental part why you have to do that with him.
This is J.T. Riddle at the plate.
The fragile psyche of a professional athlete. And make sure they stay positive.
Two and 0.
Speaking of that, Dan, just take a second to promote the book that's coming out soon by one of our colleagues who will be doing pre and post again this year, and a terrific player in his own right, Rick Ankiel, and always nice to be around Rick and have him as a partner. But his book Phenom is coming out soon, where he goes into some of the details about his struggle with having the yips and not being able to throw a strike anymore, how it came out of the blue, and his reactions to that. My understanding is, I know you've read some of the advanced copy of it, that he's pretty open about,
Extremely open.
about some of the things he was dealing with.
You know, for all of us that were around him and have gotten to know him even more after his playing career was done, he's a tremendous guy.
Oh, my.
And I know you've had him at fantasy camp, and he's great with the campers and with the former players and with all of us. But it was hard to watch what he went through. I mean, it was painful to watch it at the time. And then when he came back, it turned out to be one of the neatest stories you've seen in sports. To do what he did is I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's remarkable what he did.
We talked about the big arm outfielders earlier, didn't mention him, but his throws in Colorado from deep center field all the way into third base on the fly. I mean, he had an electric ability with his arm, but to be able to come back and hit really is phenomenal.
Well, in the book, he talks about the day that he just said, I'm done, I quit, I'm retired. And he said by the afternoon he's getting phone calls from Scott Boras saying, no, you're going back, you're going to be an outfielder. And Rick's basically, his reaction was, are you kidding me? I just said I'm done, you know.
Right.
But the Cardinals were on board and they wanted to try to make it happen, and it worked. I mean, when I heard he was going to be an outfielder, I thought, well, okay, nice story, but it isn't going to happen. Not at this level.
Within weeks, I asked Bruce Mano and Walt Jockey. Bruce Mano was working in the minor league department. Who's your #1 prospects? He said, well, our #1 power prospect is Ricky Ankiel. They didn't bat an eye. They saw that right away, that he was that gifted.
3-2 the count on Riddle. Pitch count now at 46. Cabrera is running, and it's a base hit into right.
Well, he must be nearing the end here. I would say 50 would be a number that you wouldn't want to go past. He's already at 46. Mike Matheny on the top step, and yes, looks like he's going to go and get Alcantara. So the hope for result didn't happen, but chalk it up to some more experience for the young right-hander.
Ball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you in part by your local St. Louis Hyundai dealers. Better drive us. By Shelter Insurance. For your auto, home, and life. We're your shield. We're your shelter. And by the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket you play gives back to schools across Missouri. So play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. Corey Baker is your new pitcher. 27 from New York, selected by the Cardinals with the 1,490th overall pick in 2011.
That is round number 49.
So he's been in the Cardinals system since 11, and that's a lot of bus rides. And Austin Nola is hit by the pitch, and the bases will be loaded. Last year he split time with Springfield and Memphis. 4-8 at Springfield, where he was a starter, and he started for Memphis 6 games and went 1-3.
Not necessarily a big strikeout guy, but keeps the ball in the ballpark. That's who he is. Not overpowering. Again, the 20 starts in Springfield. Decent number.
Here's Ryan Jackson. Bases are loaded. And that drops in for a ball. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Baker has a good sharp slider. He's shown that already, and some sink on his fastball. It'd be nice if he could get a ground ball to make Alcantara's day a little bit more bearable as far as the numbers are concerned.
Here's a 1-2 pitch to Jackson. Baker graduated from Clarkstown South High School in New York, played college baseball at the University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, company one. Everybody in the green shirt needs that salsa. Everybody in the yellow shirt.
Here's a 2-2 pitch. There's your double play.
There it is.
Out there. Nice turn. Double play, 6-4-3. The 6, and it's 5-4 St. Louis. Catch a game in the Hall of Fame style of the new proficient Red Jacket Club. This new all-inclusive club is designed to commemorate the Cardinals' iconic Hall of Famers and features an upscale buffet, full-service bar. Tickets start at just $75, and they're on sale now at cardinals.com/all-inclusive. The Red Jacket Club. I like it.
Wow. I want to be there.
You want a red jacket, or do you want to go to the club?
No, I'll have to borrow one. I've got some friends.
Todd Cunningham is the hitter for St. Louis. Lobstein, the lefty, works out of the pen for the Marlins. He, along with Cervenka, will be battling for that spot in their bullpen. Saw him a bit last year. Only 14 games, he dealt with some injuries. Popped up. Oh, and a a sliding catch made in right.
So normally the outfielder is the one in charge and the infielder gets out of the way, but if it's in the infield, you can go ahead and let them catch it. That's a long way to go for Galloway to make a tough play, but he's just trying to get into the game and show some hustle. Dan, good for him.
Isaac Galloway. Here's Alberto Rosario. Another one of those fun moments last year. Milwaukee. And his first ever major league hit after all those years in the minor leagues.
Raising his hands in the air, the excitement of that moment. Oh, yeah.
So 1 out and nobody on. And the first pitch taken for a strike. Cardinals had 11 players make their major league debut last year. And the 0-1. That's a base hit for Rosario. Thinking 2, and he'll trot into second base with a 1-out double. Alberto Rosario. We saw that he handled the major league staff very well too behind the plate.
Yes, he did. Had some good at-bats, just as he did there. Off-speed pitch on the inside half of a plate normally isn't a good result, and it wasn't there for Lobstein.
Now it's Alvarez for St. Louis. He is the 10th rated prospect in the Cardinals system by Baseball America. All-star last year. Signed in 2012 by the Cardinals. Watch out. Alvarez last year at Peoria had 36 doubles. A lot of times the test to see what an organization thinks of you is if you're added to the 40-man roster, which he was. And that time he strikes out. And it brings in Sosa.
Cardinals minor league system 3 or 4 years ago was ranked #1 in terms of their depth from their minor league prospects. And then they slipped about the middle of the pack the last couple years, but they rebounded again. They had a lot of the good young players that they signed a year ago playing at the lower levels, especially some of the middle infielders really have a lot of promise, as well as some of the good young arms. There's even more coming. Dakota Hudson, Connor Jones, a couple of guys that were held down with their innings last year because they were big-time college pitchers.
Right. Edmundo Sosa, the Cardinals shortstop right now, is at the plate. He is the 8th rated prospect in the Cardinals system. And he looks at a strike. Split time last year with Peoria and Palm Beach. Off the end of the bat, that will roll foul. He was part of the 2012 class for the Cardinals. He's from Panama, and that year he received the largest bonus of any of the kids that came from Panama that year. Nearly $500,000. So 2 outs and a runner at second base. 1-2 the count. Up the middle, base hit. Here comes Rosario. Throw to the plate is offline, and Rosario is in there safely. Edmundo Sosa makes it a 6-4 St. Louis lead.
Nice moment for Sosa. He gets a changeup, drives it up the middle, and gets an RBI and advances to second on the throw. Nice moment for him.
Andrew Kinzer. He's a catcher last year with Johnson City.
Talked about the protection on the roster, which is important for a minor league player. Eleazar Alvarez protected, and also Sosa, but there's some non-roster invitees, including Kisner, and they'll do that a lot of times with catchers. You need more catchers to handle all the pitchers that are in camp.
And he's hit by the pitch. And it brings in Jose Martinez. Well, if you enjoy minor league baseball, you're getting a good look at it.
And I do.
I do too. Martinez lines it foul and out of play.
Think about our friends that tune into Cardinal baseball from Springfield area, looking at some players that they're hoping to make the Springfield roster, or Memphis. And ultimately, these guys will be big leaguers. Not all of them, but most of them.
Martinez made his major league debut with the Cardinals last year, and he's battling for that 4th or 5th outfield spot, and as we've seen, can also play first base. Come to the ballpark, you got to have some talent, even in the stands.
Almost had it. Took the hat off, tried to catch it, and did not spill a drop.
And he gave it to the kid. That's the important part right there.
And he toasted himself. That's a beautiful story.
Just painting a picture here, Rick. The 0-2. Our producer today is Bill Cochran. Larry Mago, our director. One ball and 2 strikes. Now time is called. It is interesting, though, when you see the minor league players come into and are mixed up with major league players in these games. The talent difference is noticeable. I mean, you really do get to see what it's like. You know, the crispness of the play, throwing strikes, making a catch in left field, those kind of things.
And it doesn't mean that the players are not capable of doing the things the big leaguers are.
Right.
They are, but they just make more mistakes.
Right.
They're not as consistent. That really is the difference. I think those you hit on a couple of things. Pitchers throwing strikes, defensive prowess. Those two things get much better and much more consistent as you go up levels.
Two balls, 2 strikes, 2 men on, 2 outs, and a 2-run lead. Off of Lobstein. This may be a base hit. It is. Bases are loaded.
I would say there's a more noticeable difference when you're at fantasy camp and you watch a team that has Rick Ankiel in right, and a doctor in center, and an attorney in left. You can really tell there.
I'll never forget. I'll leave the camper unnamed, but a fly ball to him, and he said he couldn't get to it, and he didn't move, and it landed a foot away from him. And I'm not kidding.
Got a bad jump.
Got a bad jump. Wilfredo Tovar.
I know who that was too.
Uh-huh.
And I'll bet he's watching.
He said you couldn't get to it. You had to take one step. Just didn't have a beat on it.
Tough game.
Tovar made his Major League debut at the Mets. You may recall that. We saw him play the Cardinals, but it was in 2013. Last year, he was at AAA. And it gives the Cardinals a little depth up the middle. Off the glove, and the Cardinals pick up a run. Ruled a hit for Tovar, so he picks up a hit and an RBI, and that makes it a 7-4 St. Louis lead.
Well, it's something we say, Dan, a lot about this game over the course of a season. And when fans who have been playing baseball their whole life, or they've enjoyed it, and maybe they were involved in Little League or their kids were, they say, well, baseball it really is an easy game to play. And that's actually true. It's easy to play. It's not easy to play well. I mean, anybody can play. You can go out in the backyard and play, but the high level, consistent performance, world-class, high-level, consistent performance is extraordinarily difficult.
Now it's Anthony Garcia, and he looks at a ball. I think right now, if you're tuning in, you're wondering about some of the camp battles. You're looking at the 4th and 5th outfield spot. And you're also talking about some players that are out of options that could be keys for the Cardinals this year. Tommy Pham, Tyler Lyons, Greg Garcia. And right now, that's one of the things that a lot of us that are around the club right now at this particular moment are focusing on.
Well, there's the offensive side and the bench side as it relates to Mike Matheny's offense. And certainly those are important battles, and those will unfold over the next few weeks. And as Red Shane always says, players eliminate themselves. You know, the choices get easier as you get later to the end of spring training as to who the right guy is. But I'm still focused on the Cardinal rotation as being the key thing to get straight here this spring.
Yeah.
5 guys you feel good about giving you 30 starts.
As you mentioned yesterday, you had Reyes penciled in as your number 2.
I had him penned in.
No eraser.
No eraser.
He was there.
But that wasn't, you know, obviously I don't have a vote, but that's where I would have wanted him. Felt like that's what he earned in August and September a year ago.
Here's a 1-2 pitch.
So Wainwright's ability to come back from a down season for him, you know, can he be a number 2 or a 3 or challenge for a number 1 again? Is that possible? I guess with Adam Wainwright, anything's possible.
Bases are loaded. 2 outs. 2-2 the count on Anthony Garcia. Popped up. Cardinals strand the bases loaded, but they add 2 to their lead. Speaking of defense, that's a good one there. Martin Prado, everyday third baseman of the Marlins. Big League Baseball is back on Fox Sports Midwest.
This is the
for Corey Baker. He got a bases loaded double play to end last inning and get out of trouble. Cardinals tack on 2 and they lead 7-4. Matt Jungle is at the plate. 7-4 the lead for St. Louis. High chopper left side, and it's a base hit. That's Wilfredo Tovar, the third baseman for the Cardinals.
Just like the play Prado had earlier that he was able to come up with, and that's the difference we're talking about between a big league, a solid big league player that makes it look easy, and it's not easy. Tovar not able to come up with it.
Here's Jeffrey Perez. And that pitch is taken low. Perez signed in 2008 with the Marlins. And then a couple of years ago, he led all their minor leaguers in steals. 2015, he had 71 stolen bases. Plays center field. He's been on the infield the last couple of days. And finally got called up to the big leagues last year. Played in 12 games for Miami. Three balls and one strike. That's hit out of play.
It's just good to be back with baseball again, isn't it, Danny? 79 degrees today here in Jupiter at game time. And I know Cardinal fans are just happy to be down here, and more will be coming once spring break comes around. Really a fun complex. Talked about the minor leaguers showing up here in a week or so. And this will just be a beehive of activity. A lot of coordination to run a spring training. David Bell has a lot of that responsibility. Mark Dijon on the minor league side. We talked about the step camp going on now, the spring training early program for the young prospects who are not on the roster yet.
Runner goes in a high chopper, hit up the first base line. Boy, he can run. Perez was flying down that first base line, and that's the first out.
Well, you slap at it, you go. You make them make a perfect play, which Baker had to do by throwing it over the shoulder of Perez. That's where it's important for the first baseman to give you an inside target.
Isaac Galloway, the right fielder for Miami. Runner at second base. We're in the top of the 7th, 1 out. A game that was started by Mike Myers. He looked good. Very efficient.
He did.
Breaking ball. Strike 1. It's going to be a fun year in terms of interleague play too. Boston, New York, Baltimore. Red Sox is both home and road. We'll be at Yankee Stadium in the first month of the season. And nearly 150 games will be seen on Fox Sports Midwest.
And for those folks who want to come out to the ballpark often, and why wouldn't you? I got a sneak preview of many of the promotional items. I know people, Dan, and was able to get into the room and see some of the items that will be giveaways throughout the course of the year. They are terrific. They keep getting better and better each year.
Our next telecast Saturday at noon against the Nationals. See if Bryce Harper makes that trip. Harper, first pitch he saw, hit a home run yesterday.
I think the Nationals are going to be better than most people think they are. I think they're
going to be really good.
Some that believe that they're a little bit of a dysfunctional team, but I like the way they function. I like their shortstop, Trey Turner, who we saw here last spring training play against the Cardinals, and thought, boy, this guy could play. I'd take him right now.
Here's a ground ball hit to short. 2 away. Well, a great way to see a game at Busch is with a group of your friends and family. Group tickets are on sale now, and groups of 20 or more receive great incentives, including a discount of up to 50% off the gate price in most seating areas. For more details, visit cardinals.com/groups or call 314-345-9000. So 2 outs and a runner at second base. This is Brandon Barnes at the plate.
You have to look at the Giants again and the Dodgers again in the West.
Healthy Kershaw. Melanson now the closer with San Francisco, Mark Melanson. And I think when you look at the West too, you've got to look at Colorado. Well, that team is loaded.
Their lineup is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Your question year after year is, can they pitch well enough?
Added Ian Desmond. Time to stretch. Beautiful day here at Roger Dean Stadium. Glad that you're with us on Fox Sports Midwest. Despaigne will take over for the Marlins as we move to the bottom of the 7th. It's 7-4 St. Louis. And this is our Chevy Cole to the pen. You may remember him as a starter with the San Diego Padres. And at that time, they had the comparisons of El Duque because of the mannerisms of which he has in terms of how he delivers the baseball to the plate.
Audrey Samir Despaigne. Cardinals saw him a couple of times in San Diego.
And this is Sierra at the plate, former minor league batting champion. We talked about him yesterday. Very good defensive player. And you could tell even from a year ago and certainly from 2 years ago, he's gotten a little bit bigger too.
Yes, he has. He's filling out. Numbers last season, 307. Really, as you mentioned, a plus defender. The Cardinals believe center field's his best position. And, you know, there was a time where the Cardinals were kind of running out of some center field options at the minor league level, but I think that's been retooled. Harrison Bader, we saw yesterday at a home run in his first spring training at bat. He's a center fielder and got a lot of choices now.
And Bader is on deck. By the way, my understanding is before he hit the home run, Bader hit a foul ball. It was caught by his father, who was in the stands, who then gave it to Jim Hayes' son. The foul ball. Yeah.
There's a good deed that was not punished. You got some reward for that.
Then he watched his son pop a home run. Bader is on deck, but here's the 2-2 to Sierra. Base hit into right.
A little evidence of the strength and bat speed there of Sierra.
He had 31 steals last year at Peoria, too. Back to yesterday in the home run for Harrison Bader.
Jim Hayes would have been a good dad. He'd have gone out beyond the left field wall and gotten that ball for his son as well.
Well, he should have.
Maybe he did. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
Bader only 2 years in pro ball and already at AAA. He is rated as the 7th best prospect in the Cardinals system. I say in his swing, the way that it was described to me is that he coils up and then it's just an explosion into the baseball.
You know what that makes me think of? Matt Holliday. Talk about an explosion into the baseball. Matt a little bit more relaxed in the beginning. I see the coiling you're talking about with Bader. Turns his front shoulder a bit and then explodes.
Take a look again here, Rick. The home run hit from yesterday, different angle.
Loading up and delivering.
Last year in 131 minor league games, combined 19 home runs. It's 16 in Springfield, 3 with Memphis. 2 balls and 2 strikes. But this is another player that you may see at some point this year. 2-2 the count. Sierra is leaning at first base and now diving back in safely.
You know what's also true about spring training, Dan, is it really from year to year in baseball, you have almost a pecking order of where do you stand in the organization, and okay, this is your prospect, this is your next. But year after year, it begins with spring training. There's a reshuffling of the deck a bit.
Sure.
And what you thought was true October of last year won't be true by the end of spring training, and it'll be a different truth by the time you get to August. So prospects can make a name for themselves, and all of a sudden you're in the picture, or a player that you expect to be good might fade away. So you always have to prove yourself, and it starts here in the spring.
The 2-2 pitch to Bader. Instead, another check on Sierra. Another check on Sierra.
I think the prime example of that is this time last year, to convince anybody around the Cardinal organization that Aledmus Diaz was going to be your everyday shortstop and an all-star, you'd have had a hard time selling that.
There's a fly ball lifted down the left field line and foul. Well, you know, you put it this way. At one point, he was off the 40-man roster.
Any team could have taken it.
Yeah. Bader had 11 home runs 2 seasons ago in the minor leagues. He started at State College, then went to Peoria. Last year began at Springfield and jumped up to Memphis. That is moving quickly through the system. Cardinals having more trouble with belts today than anything else.
Bader gets an apartment, whatever city he goes to, gets the security deposit down, only pays month to month.
Wouldn't blame him. Here's a 3-2. Grounded to short. Sierra was running on the play, and Bader is out. So Sierra advances to second base. And it brings in Rosario, who doubled his first time up.
The Cardinals manager, number 68, Alberto Rosario.
You know, one name we really haven't talked much about so far, Rick, and apparently we will not see him in game action this spring, and that is Marco Gonzalez. Still trying to come back from Tommy John.
We're told that it would probably be May by the time he's able to throw competitively. That's the timetable he's on. I wouldn't count him out as somebody that could be a difference maker before the year is over. But that's part of the reshuffling we were talking about. At one point, he just said he's, you know, this year you'd go into this year and say, well, your fifth starter is probably going to be either Tim Cooney or Marco Gonzalez. Tim Cooney's not with the club anymore. Gonzalez is here, but hurt.
1 ball, 1 strike.
2 outs, no more beer. Who's ready? Water and beer. Who's thirsty? Who's thirsty? Water and beer right here. Water and beer. No more.
Sierra is your runner at second base. And Rosario looks at a strike. 1-2 the count. Two and two. Well, the 31 steals for Sierra, by the way, caught stealing 17 times. So very aggressive. Breaking ball, that's tapped foul. So the Cardinals open up with the Cubs, the favorites in the Central. And then it's kind of up in the air with Pittsburgh to see exactly where they go with their team. Team that almost won 100 games 2 years ago.
They're at a crossroad.
They really are.
They can keep getting better, which will cost some money, or they can rebuild.
Tied him up and a strikeout of Rosario.
Pittsburgh has good young pitching that might be worth rolling the dice with.
Garrett Cole has been announced as their opening day starter. Tyler Glasnow, we saw him make his major league debut this past 2016 campaign. That's some of the young pitching you're talking about. Here's Alvarez, and he looks at a strike.
And two guys we haven't talked much about yet because they have not really been firmly decided what their first day will be. That's coming here shortly. Carlos Martinez and Adam Wainwright will be slated to start sometime during the middle of the week. Martinez, of course, signing the big contract. A lot will be expected of him, but he's earned it. And he was really, really good a season ago and has been throughout his career. So look forward to getting Carlos back out on the mound. Mike Matheny saying today he didn't want to really rush innings for his guys. Talked about some relievers the same way. Kevin Seagrist. Comment was, it's a long season. They'll all get plenty of innings. So he's not rushing anybody out there.
With the early start in spring, so many games, it does make sense. Here's a 1-1 pitch. 1-2. And the 1-2 pitch to Alvarez. Missed. Not by much.
Alvarez had a rough at-bat against the left-hander, his first plate appearance here today. You mentioned how good his season was a year ago. Like to see him pick up Sierra, the runner at second, who runs well. Sierra's been one of those guys I've been anxious to watch play on a regular basis. It's kind of hard to sense his ability just with a couple of at-bats.
Called back on the changeup. Stays 2-2. Well, anytime you win a batting championship, I mean, that gets your attention.
No question.
You want to see the kid play. I don't care what level it is. I mean, it's significant. And a line shot to third. That ends the 7th. We head to the 8th. It's 7-4 St. Louis. Top of the 8th rolls in, and Corey Baker still in this game. As Rick and I were talking between innings, Rick is really upset that Baker's still in. You're concerned about this pitch count.
Worried about the pitch count. And obviously not, but he's a guy that's been a starter. We mentioned that, and normally you would go 2 innings in your first outing. He's gone an inning and 2/3, but he did it rather efficiently in the last inning, got 3 ground balls, so he's earned another inning. Seems to be a guy that commands the bottom part of the zone. Nothing overwhelming about his stuff. And doesn't that tell you something? We watched Alcantara before him, and now Baker, who's just changing speeds, keeping the ball down, good breaking ball, and he's getting outs. And Alcantara, throwing 98, struggled a bit today.
Here's an 0-2 pitch to Matt Decker. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Cardinals with the lead of 7-4. They have out-hit the Marlins 13-8 in this game. Neither team has committed an error.
It's a good game to see them.
You don't mean that.
Friends trying to come in.
A swing and a miss. See how quickly I moved on from that? Swing and a miss.
I saw that. Well, there have been a couple that probably could be errors, and the wind probably playing into the scoring rulings. And it's spring training.
Ramon Cabrera. There's a high chopper over Baker. Tough play here, and they make it.
Nice play.
That's Alvarez, the second baseman, who made that play.
That's very smooth.
Well,
Baker
he's
can't get
known,
it.
Rick, for his glove, too.
Absolutely, and you see why. All those plays look easy in slow motion, but you have to have the footwork right. It's one of the things talking with Oquendo about defense, and with Ozzie some a couple days ago. You know, you think defense, you think about the hands only, and you tend not to think about the footwork that puts you in a position to be able to field the ball or not. It's Jose with Ollie Marmol.
JT Riddle is at the plate.
Talked with some folks today about the great George Cecil, who we always talk a lot about here in spring training. His picture is up in the clubhouse that we walk past on the minor league side. And what we were talking today about was the fact that George Cecil not only was coaching players all the time, but he also was coaching coaches how to coach.
Sure. Relationships, how to handle situations. I'm sure you've talked to Mike Schilt about it, but you know, Mike was and is the modern day George Cecil. I think a lot of people look at him that way. He spent so many years in the minor leagues as a coach, and now will be with the big club. And I've asked him, I said, what did you take away from George? He said, well, not so much the X's and O's. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of that. He said, but just how he handled and could explain in a simple manner what you're supposed to do in certain situations. He said it was just incredible how he simplified the game.
If you can simplify the difficult game and give a drill or give a thought process that will help the player play better, you've done something as a coach, and that is tricky business.
Yeah. Austin Nola at the plate.
If you give a calculus answer when the player's ready for a simple addition or subtraction answer, you've confused him.
1 ball and 1 strike. There's Matt Bowman.
And what a difference a year makes with a guy like Matt Bowman. He was just number 67 last year.
And if certain injuries didn't happen, he's no longer a member of the Cardinals.
Right.
As a Rule 5. Bullpen, you're looking at Broxton, Segrist, Brett Cecil, Rosenthal right now working as a starter, but it seems that that would fall in that direction. And Matt Bowman. Three balls and one strike.
And by the time it's over, you'll need more guys. The way it works now.
And a fan that was listening to our telecast yesterday, and they were shocked when I said it takes about 25 different pitchers to get through a season.
Right.
They just couldn't believe it. But that is the average right now.
Well, you take 13, and you've got to rely pretty much on your AAA staff. At least that's what that number comes up to.
That's right.
To augment what you're doing. Sokolovic has been a guy that's done that in the past. He's out of options. They can't do that with him again. Sam Tuivailala has been a guy you've gone up and down with, who you'll need at some point.
You know, you go back to last season for the Cubs. Outside of Kyle Schwarber, they really didn't deal with a lot of injuries. You know, they were for the most part injury free. Now Schwarber was a big one, clearly.
No doubt.
There's a fly ball that's tailing back towards right field, and the catch is made. That's Bader in right. So nice work by Corey Baker out of the pen today. 7-4 St. Louis. Marlins finishing up his warm-up tosses. And a reminder that single game tickets are on sale now. And so if you're looking to go to a particular game, you can head to the Cardinals website, look for the single game tickets tab, and log on and get your seats for the best games and promotional dates coming up. And some of those tickets start at just $5 at Cardinals.com. Matt Tomshaw last season in the minor leagues went 5-5. All right, you as a former pitcher, you look at that graphic. When you look at different things in a media guide that goes through with a pitcher, this is our Chevy call to the pen. I'm just curious, what's the first thing you look at?
When I look at a minor league guy, I look at strikeouts because I want to see has he got an out pitch. So 103 strikeouts, 92 innings. That tells me he's got an out pitch somewhere. He's got a plus pitch that will play at the big league level. So you look for that. You also look for the walk, strikeout
That's
walk
what
ratio.
I look at.
Yeah.
There's a ground ball that's hit to short, one pitch, one out.
And the ratio does matter, Dan. But if the strikeouts aren't high, it makes you wonder what's going to happen with a guy that's a little more selective at a higher level and a little bit more capable of doing some damage. You like that swing and miss pitch somewhere.
This is Kinzer. Minor league catcher, his second plate appearance today. First thing I look at, walks, then strikeouts. And the 0-1. There's your breaking ball.
Sharp.
0-2.
Pretty sharp.
And a swing and a miss, so 2 quick outs from the left-hander for Miami.
Some command right there. He hit his spot exactly. That's something else you think about is how they're developing as a minor leaguer. We look at that last delivery, wanted the fastball in, and he ties him up, perfectly placed. Kind of a half swing trying to catch up with it. But you also look, Dan, to see if a guy's had some jump or some level of improvement, and that normally tells me that they learned a new pitch, or maybe it's a changeup that they've mastered. Maybe it's a different kind of breaking ball that's become effective, or a split, something, cutter. And you see this huge jump as far as the numbers are concerned. That tells me that you can throw away all the other numbers. They're a new guy now.
Yeah. Or sometimes is simply a shift in what you're doing. You go from a starter to a reliever.
Right.
Brett Cecil would be a good example of that, I think. You know, I've got a trip planned for us. I'm ready.
Hey, I don't even go on an elevator with you. Now I'm going on a trip with you?
Yeah, we're going to go to the
Where are we
Baseball Classic. We're going to go down to Marlins Park.
All right.
You want to do it?
I would love to do it with you. That's right. It's right down the road.
Talking with Rich Walls, who is the play-by-play man of the Marlins, and he's doing some of the games overseas. And he said, Dan, you wouldn't believe the atmosphere outside of the United States and how important it is for those fans, those countries, and those players. He said, I'm not saying that, you know, the U.S. doesn't take it serious or that the players don't want to be a part of it. He said, that's not it. He said, it's a huge deal in Japan and Korea, which is where he's going to go. Certainly Puerto Rico and the Dominican. It's a big, big deal.
I thought we were going to Jamaica or something.
No.
But yeah, I'm in.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's go.
There's a walk for Jose Martinez.
Now, you did say we're going to the games in Miami, not the ones in Tokyo.
No, we're not going to Tokyo. We'd have to go from here to Seattle, and then it's a 10-hour flight for them to get over there.
Oh, boy.
I made a trip from Seattle to Jupiter. I did that before my first ever Major League game.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did a Blues game in Vancouver, and then took the red eye from Vancouver to Seattle, Seattle to, I guess it was, I don't know if we went into West Palm or Fort Lauderdale.
I'm sure you weren't a bit grouchy.
No, I wasn't nervous at all either. Tovar with a base hit. Potentially, no, it's foul. This booth, I looked over, 2 booths over, and there was Jack Buck laughing at me, pointing at me with Mike Shannon. Going, they knew how nervous I was, laughing. Jack was the best.
20 years ago.
20 years ago, that's right. Just slightly nervous. A.J. Burnett was on the mound, and Joe Buck came in the booth and was working with Al, and Joe did a couple of innings with us. And Joe decided to get talking about certain things that A.J. liked at that time of his career, which was tattoos, and he brought it up on the air, nipple rings. He had certain piercings that appealed to.
That's your first game.
That was my first game, and then Joe started talking about that, and I think it was to lighten me up a little bit, but I even said, I go, Joe, please don't go there. Don't, please. Oh, no. He went there.
Well, having worked with you for a number of years now, I think he lightened you up a little too much. Nice play.
Now I'm saying, get me out of this inning. Really nice play and right. About two.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Just tell me about the ninth.
It's our Chevy call to the pen, and Matt Bowman, the right-hander, takes over for St. Louis.
Big season a year ago for him. Came out of nowhere. Rule 5 pick. 59 games. I would say was very consistent.
Yeah.
In the Cardinals bullpen. Not a wow you guy, but he had some really good stretches. Strike thrower. Very simple delivery.
First time I saw him, I was thinking of Tim Lincecum.
Yes.
Because of the delivery. Now, Lincecum, one of the things that he did, it was incredible how far he would stretch his front leg in the delivery to the plate.
Right.
Bowman doesn't do that, but he does have that little turn of the back where you'll see the 6-7 to the hitter.
And he gets very spread out, too. He gets really extended to the back and forward, and his chest is way spread out right there in his delivery. And then he explodes to the plate. Take a look at Bowman from the side. There's the turn, and he's just long in the middle of that delivery. And as you mentioned, Lincecum would stretch out farther. I think Bowman, to stay on top more, the foot comes down quicker. He wants to throw downhill and throw sinker.
2-2 is hit to third. Sinker, ground ball, and an out.
That's a good summary of the season a year ago.
So you're Matt Bowman, you're going into this spring training, and any player will say, I'm fighting for a spot. You know, Albert Pujols used to say, I haven't made the team yet. That's the mindset. But the reality is he secure in a position with the Cardinals right now?
I don't think so. I mean, do I think he should be on the team? Yes. I have no reason to think he's not. But to say that you're secure enough to say, I'm in no matter what, I think that's a mistake to think that way. Now, I think Albert maybe was overshooting that a bit after hitting 30 home runs and driving in.
It was the MVP.
100 and all the MVP and all that. But I think a pitcher realizes how fast the humbler can come up and get you.
Sure.
We saw the drop for Trevor Rosenthal last year, Seth Maness. And Bowman is a Maness-type pitcher. Got to keep working, keep pitching, keep earning it.
Big one.
2 balls and 1 strike. Matt Jungle is at the plate. Good sinker there.
That's what Bowman does. Movement, late life.
The 2-2. A little bit high. Jeffrey Perez is on deck.
Bowman's tough to read, Dan, because he throws a little harder than you think he does. 92, 93, tops out probably, but with that good sink, it's hard sink.
And you mentioned it too, late life. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. We're in the top of the 9th. Cardinals leading 7-4. 2 outs and nobody on. Jeffrey Perez looks at strike 1.
The story of game 1 here yesterday, Dan. Game 1 of spring training was a lot of home runs, power displayed by both teams. Today, the Cardinals have just swung the bat. 13 hits. And have had a lot of really good at-bats beyond just the hits. Sacrifice fly. Seen guys move runners over. Saw the hustling on the base paths of Eric Fryer early on. Just really a good offensive showing today.
And the Marlins are now down to their final strike. These fans are going crazy.
Those two are.
Yep.
Oh, it's contagious.
It's picked up. And the 1-2. Swing and a miss and a strikeout, and the Cardinals have their first win of spring training 2017. We'll be back to wrap it up in just a moment.